Good morning. Today's show comes from one of my viewers, Susan, who shared an article with me that before I even read it, I kind of had an idea. It was almost prolific what it was going to be about. And it's interesting because on Monday, I did a show on customer service, okay? And I talked about how businesses, in order to get repeat customers, they need to treat their customers with respect, answer their phone calls. Well, you've watched the show. I hope you should have, or you can watch it. It's still up there. But what if a business actually wants to keep getting repeat business by keeping their customers sick? That's today's show. Susan sent me an article from a website called arstechnica.com, and it was just published last Thursday, April 12th, 2018. And it talks about how pharmaceutical companies call in business analysts to go over their business model and tell them what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And what was told to pharmaceutical companies and research developers is going to make you sick right now. And I'm going to read, which I rarely do, but these quotes are important. So one of the quotes is, "A one-shot cure is not good for business. It's actually bad for long-term profits. Curing patients is not a sustainable business model." They used an example, and this was from Goldman Sachs, by the way, that while a cure has tremendous value for society and patients, but it is a challenge for those looking for regular cash flow. And they used an example of a company called Gilead. Gilead found a cure for hepatitis C. And as was noted, because the cure works so well, this company made less than $4 billion last year. Poor babies. Wow. Profits are falling. Here's the quote that really got me. "The more patients that are cured," because hepatitis C is a transmittable disease, "the more patients cured, there are fewer out there to spread the disease, and sales begin to drop. The dynamics of an effective drug that permanently cures a disease, resulting in a gradual exhaustion of the pool of patients. This suggests diseases such as common cancer, where the incident pool remains stable, is less risky for business." And we're going to talk about cancer in a bit. What I just read to you, can you imagine that a company that has commercials all over the place? I mean, you watch TV on a regular basis, and every other commercial is a pharmaceutical company advertising a new drug that does this or does that, but it doesn't cure anything. A lot of these drugs simply makes you feel better while you live with a disease. And right here in this article, you now know why. Why you're getting a Band-Aid instead of the stitches, the cure. It's because it's not good for business to cure you. It's not good for business to give you a pill and make you all better forever, because then you're not a repeat customer. Now, we all know that businesses live on repeat customers, right? Companies who make TVs, they make them cheaper. A flat screen TV, you're lucky if it lasts 5 years. Then it blows up and you have to go out and buy a new one. It's a TV. Washing machines. If you have an old-fashioned washing machine from 30 years ago, chances are it lasts. You buy a new one today, it's going to last you 5 to 10 years, and you're going to need a new one. That's how they make them. They want repeat business. But we're not talking about washing machines. We're not talking about refrigerators or computers or laptops or tablets or Xboxes. We're talking about the human being. My body gets sick. I can't go out and buy a new one. And yet, these business analysts, like Goldman Sachs, are telling pharmaceutical and research companies to slow down. Don't be so quick to find a cure, because if you cure it, that's it. Think about it. Think about if we all know if we get strep throat, right? We go to the doctor and we get 10 days of antibiotics and we feel better within 2 days. We're better. We're cured, right? Well, what if there was a way that cancer could be cured that way? Well, Mrs. Luciano, the bad news is you've got breast cancer. The good news is here's a 10-day supply of pills. Take one a day with a meal and you'll be cured in 10 days. What if that were available? Would anybody really want to market it? Because if I'm cured in 10 days, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money, right? We all know who's going to lose. The pharmaceutical companies who make chemotherapy and radiation are going to lose. The oncologists who treat cancer patients are going to lose, because we won't need them anymore. I'll just take my 10-day pills and I'll be all better. What if that would happen? And do any of you honestly think it will happen in our lifetime? Because sick people are big business. We shouldn't be, but we are. Counting on people getting sick and staying sick and needing their products is what keeps pharmaceutical industries in business. They sell poisons that treat cancer, chemotherapy, and then they sell more poisons that counteract the results, the side effects of chemotherapy. They make money on that. You see the commercial with the woman with that thing on her arm saying, you need this after you get chemo because it'll keep you from getting an infection and you won't have to go back to the doctor. All of the commercials for farm drugs are not cures. They are, in fact, Band-Aids. They want you to live longer with your illness so that they can keep you coming back as repeat customers. And yes, we are customers when we go to the doctor. I do believe that. I've said that. A doctor has no right making you wait when you have an appointment, an hour in their waiting room. They should treat you with respect like a customer. But at the end of the day, we're patients. It's not like I'm taking my computer in for a checkup or my computer in because I want it fixed because it's not working right. This is my body. And when a doctor becomes a doctor, the proudest day of their life, the first thing they say in their oath is first do no harm. And I can't think of anything more harmful than trying to keep a patient coming back when there is a cure. I'll give you a personal example. And it's kind of a conspiracy theory with me. It may or may not be true. But I thought about it many times over the 30 years that I had to use birth control and pay for it out of my pocket. This was before the Affordable Care Act for Women was passed. At 26, I said to my OBGYN, I want my tubes tied. I don't ever want to be pregnant or have children. And he refused. Now, maybe he thought I was nuts. Some doctors, especially male doctors, can't imagine any woman not wanting children. But it was my choice. And he refused. And part of me, even back then, thought, wait a minute. If at 26, okay, I get my tubes tied, and most women go through menopause in their 50s. Well, that's 30 years that I won't be using pharmaceutical birth control. And I've done shows about this before, how doctors get perks for every prescription they write from the pharmaceutical companies. So could my doctor have been thinking, I can't sterilize a 26-year-old woman. She's got 30 years of me prescribing birth control for her, getting those free dinners, free lunches, free cruises from the people who make her birth control. Not to mention the fact that if I sterilize her, she may not come in for her yearly pap smear. That's another $200 a year I'm out. And it's not just me. What if there were 50 of his patients in their 20s and 30s who wanted their tubes tied? That would be 30 patients who are not using birth control, are not paying the pharmaceutical company. He's not prescribing their drugs, giving them repeat business. And of course, you are forced to have an annual pap smear and exam with a gynecologist if you're on birth control, or they won't give you your birth control. So that would be maybe 30, 40 women who he no longer sees every year. That's money out of his pocket. It is something to think about. It's something I thought about often, especially when I go back and think about all the unnecessary money I spent on pap smears and annual exams and birth control. Just because the cure would have been getting my tubes tied. I wouldn't have needed any of that crap. I think about celebrities, famous people who have said that the pharmaceutical drugs aren't working for them. They don't like the side effects, and they have the money to go to other countries where they have experimental drugs. And because these people are wealthy, they can afford to pay for them. And they end up living longer and better quality lives than patients in America do on the farm drugs that are available to us. In America, we are at the mercy of health insurance companies and what drugs are available to us from the pharmaceutical industry, and what drugs health insurance will pay for. Interesting, ironic story too. On Monday night, as I was researching this show, saw something on nightly news about lung cancer. Now, believe it or not, lung cancer is still the #1 cancer killer in the world. And that's after all the, you can't smoke on the beach, you can't smoke 50 feet away from a child, you can't smoke anywhere. Everybody's quitting smoking, right? Well, people are still dying from lung cancer, just so you know. So obviously, with all the people who've quit smoking, people who've never started smoking, well, they're still getting lung cancer. Well, there's good news. Good news on the horizon. There's a new genetic modified treatment for lung cancer. This woman who went through the study, she was diagnosed 6 years ago, told she had a year to live, stage 4 lung cancer, really, really bad. They gave her this drug. She's still alive. 5 years later. Guess how much that drug costs? $100,000. You think insurance is going to pay for that? Bet not. She was in a study, so I'm not sure if she actually paid for it, or maybe she's just a very wealthy woman. But the bottom line is, even if we do find a cure and the pharmaceutical companies think it is business savvy to release it to the public, who of the public will be able to afford it? Because it's going to be hugely expensive. Because as we saw with this article, they don't care about you. They don't care about your life. They don't care about saving your life. They just want repeat business. They want you to keep coming back. They want you to stay sick so you continue to need their poison. And then you need their drugs that counteract their poisons. They want people to stay sick. And to me, well, that's sick. It goes against everything that we as Americans especially should believe in. We say we value human rights. We spend all this money trying to prevent diseases from happening. But guess what? They happen anyway. Billions of dollars. Healthcare and health insurance companies will pay 100% for you to get diagnosed with an illness. Mammograms, pap smears, colonoscopies, prostate exams, they'll pay for that. But once you get that diagnosis, that's when they start nickel and diming you. Well, that's an experimental drug. You can't use that. No, you can't go to Germany and get one of their drugs. They're not FDA approved. You got to use American pharmaceutical drugs, and we'll decide which ones you get, which ones we'll pay for. Does that sound right to any of you? Pay for the diagnosis, don't pay for the treatment, and God forbid there's a cure, because the pharmaceutical companies would lose money. It's really sad, isn't it? It's definitely something to think about. And the other thing we need to think about is when we treat human beings like we treat our televisions, our microwaves, our refrigerators, our washers and dryers. I mean, really? Are we just supposed to throw them out? You can't throw yourself in the trash can and buy a new one like you can an appliance. So what we have to do is we have to go to the farm companies and use their poisons if we want to stay alive. But I think the next time you fill a prescription, and it's just to maintain your illness or keep you alive for a year or two, and they say, well, you'll have a year or two with your family. No, you won't. You'll have a year or two getting very well acquainted with your toilet. You will have a year or two of getting infections and being in the hospital, and you may even die from complications from the treatment of your disease. I think when you have a family member or you yourself are dealing with this, remember this article. Remember what I said. Remember this show. Remember that there could be a cure out there somewhere for you. And no, I don't believe it's laying in a secret lab in Roswell, New Mexico, along with the aliens at Area 51. I used to think about that, but I don't really believe that. What I do believe, though, is that those who are working tirelessly to try to be the first person in this world to find an actual cure, a real cure for a lot of diseases, are being told to take the weekend off, slow down, because a cure is bad for business. And yet we still say first do no harm. You guys have to decide for yourselves. I personally do not do prescription medication. Neither does my husband. We make that decision on our own. We're not wealthy people. We don't have $100,000 for a cure if it would ever become available. But, you know, the good news is there's some really rich people out there who might be able to swing it. Rich people will live longer. Us regular everyday people will die like we have been doing for years. And all will be right with the world. Because to be honest, we need people to die in our country. Social Security can't support every elderly American to 100 years old. We can't afford that. Everybody loses when people live longer. Oh, except, of course, the people who live longer and those who love them. Political Paula, out.